This is Dave. Dave is about to lose a fight he doesn't know he's in. A wild boar weighs more than Dave, it's faster than Dave, and it's annoyed. Dave thinks the danger is the bite. Dave is wrong. The real weapon is lower, it's sharp, and it points up. In the next 9 minutes, Dave's body will fail in a very specific order. And the thing that actually kills him, it isn't the part you're watching for. So let's find out what it's really like to be gored by a wild boar, starting with the blade. Dave looks at the boar's mouth and sees teeth. Reasonable. Also useless information, because a boar doesn't attack the way a wolf does. It doesn't crush or chew or hold on. It stabs, upward, with 2 curved blades growing out of its lower jaw. In a big male, those lower tusks can stick out 20 centimeters. In old monsters, 30. And what you see is the small part. 2/3 of the tusk is anchored deep inside the jaw. That deep anchor is why the tusk doesn't snap when it slams into bone at full speed. But here's the part nobody expects. The tusk sharpens itself. Every time the boar opens its mouth, the upper tusks grind against the lower ones. Like a whetstone running all day, chewing sharpens it, breathing sharpens it, being angry at Dave sharpens it. The result is an edge that slices through 3-inch tree roots. Human muscle offers no resistance worth mentioning. And this enamel is harder than cow tooth enamel. It's built to hit bone and keep its edge, so forget the bite. What's coming for Dave is a self-sharpening, bone-proof curved knife. 2 of them, actually. Driven by a neck built like a battering ram. Which raises the obvious question. Where on Dave is all that aimed? The answer is lower than you think, and it's not an accident. Dave braces for a hit to the stomach. Centered. Heroic. Wrong again. A charging boar stands about 90 centimeters at the shoulder. Its tusks ride at one exact height. On a standing adult, that line lands at the thighs, the groin, the back of the legs. This is why goring wounds cluster on the lower body. It's just geometry. And the first hit usually comes from behind. Because Dave does the natural thing. He turns to flee. He never turns fast enough. The strike itself isn't a poke. It's a hook and then a rip. The tusk goes in, the head snaps up, and the blade tears upward through everything in its path. Recorded wounds run over 10 centimeters long and more than 4 deep. That's the average one. The bad ones go straight down through the muscle to the bone. And the force that knocks Dave down is the same force that makes everything after this worse. Because once Dave is on the ground, the boar doesn't stop. It resets and goes again. But let's freeze on that first wound, because something is already going wrong inside the leg. From the outside, it looks survivable. From the inside, it's a different story entirely. To understand why, we have to look at what lives just under the skin of Dave's thigh. Here's the trap. A boar wound can look almost polite from the outside. A narrow tear, some blood, the kind of thing Dave might try to walk off. That tick mark on the surface is lying to him. The damage isn't at the skin. The tusk is curved and the head jerks sideways on the way in. So the wound inside isn't a straight line. It branches, it tunnels, it shreds structures the entry point never hinted at. And in the upper thigh, there's one neighborhood you really don't want torn. It's called the femoral triangle, a shallow pocket holding a nerve, a vein, and a major artery. These aren't buried deep. They sit just under thin layers of skin and fat. A blunt force might bruise them. The boar's tusk doesn't bruise. It's sharp enough to cut like a scalpel. So instead of pinching the artery shut, it slices it clean open. Both ends wide open. And it doesn't stop at the artery. The same rip can take the nerve with it. Sever the big nerves and the leg can go dead instantly. No control. No standing up. No running. Which means escape is already off the table. And Dave hasn't even noticed the worst part yet. Because an open artery in the thigh isn't a slow leak. It's a countdown. And that countdown is shorter than almost anyone guesses. Let's start the clock. Dave is still alive. He's even a little calm. That calm has a short shelf life. The femoral artery is a fire hose. It feeds the entire leg with blood under high pressure. At rest, it pushes a few hundred milliliters of blood every minute. That's the calm setting. But Dave just got charged by a screaming wall of muscle. His body switched to full panic mode. Fight or flight floods the legs with blood. Flow through that artery can jump toward 1,000 milliliters a minute. His body did that to help him run. But the artery is cut, so now it's just pumping him empty, faster. Every heartbeat is a spurt. Bright red, under pressure, timed perfectly to a pulse that won't quit. A grown adult holds about 5 liters of blood. Watch how little time that actually buys. With a cleanly cut femoral artery and no help, a person can bleed out in as little as 2 to 5 minutes. If the cut is high, near the groin, the dangerous part starts even sooner. The body does fight back. It has a strict emergency protocol for losing blood this fast. First, it slams the heart rate up. Then it clamps the blood vessels in the skin and arms shut. It's hoarding what's left for the heart and the brain. Dave's skin goes pale, cold, and clammy. He feels suddenly freezing, desperately thirsty, and like he can't pull in a full breath. That breathless panic is air hunger. His blood can't carry enough oxygen anymore, and his body knows it. The protocol is buying him seconds, but seconds aren't a rescue, and the boar isn't his only problem now. Let's say Dave gets lucky. Someone ties off the leg, the bleeding stops. He survives the clock. Dave thinks the worst is over. Dave is, once again, wrong, because that tusk didn't arrive clean. It carried whatever was in the boar's mouth and whatever was in the dirt. A boar's mouth is a crowded place. Strep, staph, pastorella, a whole roster of bacteria that love open flesh. One of them, Streptococcus suis, rides in the throats of most wild boars. To Dave, it can mean meningitis or going deaf, but the mouth isn't even the dangerous part. The dangerous part came off the ground. Farm and forest soil is full of Clostridium spores, tetanus and gas gangrene, sleeping, waiting for the right conditions. On healthy skin, those spores do nothing. They need a very specific home, deep, torn, and starved of oxygen. And the boar just built exactly that, a deep, ragged tunnel packed with dirt and dying tissue. The cut vessels mean parts of that tissue get no blood, no oxygen. To these bacteria, that's a 5-star hotel. The spores wake up, multiply, and one of them starts producing a toxin that dissolves muscle from the inside. That's gas gangrene. It spreads fast, and it leaves bubbles of gas under the skin you can feel crackle. And here's the cruel twist. That tourniquet that saved Dave from bleeding out, it choked off the limb's oxygen too. The same move that stopped the blood made the perfect breeding ground for the thing growing inside him. So nobody can sew this wound shut either. Close the surface, and you trap the bacteria in the dark with the corpse of the muscle. Left alone, this turns into full-body sepsis in a couple of days. But Dave might not last that long, because while the infection plays the long game, his body is fighting a much faster war and starting to lose it. Back to the fast war. Dave's body has been running an emergency that can't last. Two kinds of shock are hitting him at once: the pain of severed nerves and the slow drain of lost blood. The blood loss is the one that wins. As blood leaves, less of it returns to the heart to be pumped out. Sensors in his arteries scream that the pressure is collapsing. The body answers with everything it has, a flood of adrenaline. Heart rate past 140. Every spare vessel clamped to save the core. For a minute, it almost works. This is the part where a victim looks like they're holding it together. That's the lie of compensated shock. The numbers look almost okay, right up until they don't. Once Dave loses past 40% of his blood, the compensation simply runs out of road. The heart is still hammering, but now it's starving itself, pumping hard with nothing left to pump. And up top, the brain finally stops getting enough. You'd expect screaming. That's not what happens. Starved of oxygen, the brain dials the panic down. The terror fades. The pain fades. It feels almost calm. He's not at peace. His brain is powering down, shutting off the higher floors to keep the basement lights on. Anxiety, then confusion, then heavy drowsiness. The slide is gradual, quiet, and almost gentle. To anyone watching, it looks like Dave is simply, slowly falling asleep. Which brings us back to the promise we made at the start. What actually kills Dave here? We've watched the tusk, the rip, the artery, the infection, the shock. So pick the killer. Most people guess the infection. Slow, gruesome, dramatic, and most of the time, they're wrong. In the great majority of fatal attacks, the infection never gets its chance. The person is already gone. It's the bleeding. The thing that kills is almost always simple blood loss, on the spot, in minutes. And that's the trap of this whole thing. The wound that does it doesn't look like much from outside. These attacks happen out in fields and forests. Help is far. The 2 to 5 minute window closes before anyone arrives. The few who live almost always have one thing in common. Someone stopped the bleeding in those first minutes. Not a hospital, not surgery, a belt, a strap, a pair of hands pressing down. That's the whole difference. And remember, the first strike usually came from behind. Most victims never even saw the hit that started the clock. This isn't hypothetical. In 2019 in rural Texas, a 59-year-old woman was found in a yard before dawn. At first, they thought she'd fallen. The injuries were so severe and hog deaths so rare, no one wanted to believe it. But the autopsy was clear. The cause of death was exsanguination, bleeding out from a feral hog attack. Not the bite, not the infection. The simple, fast arithmetic of an open artery, and no one close enough to help. So back to Dave. The good news is, Dave is fine, because Dave isn't real, and we're not actually doing that to him. But the boar is real. The 2 to 5 minutes are real. And so is the part where you don't see it coming. The lesson Dave wants you to take isn't fear. It's the belt, the strap, the hands, knowing what stops the clock. Survive the first 5 minutes, and you get to argue with the bacteria later. Dave survived a boar, barely, on paper, with a lot of help from the fact that he's a cartoon. Tell me in the comments which animal Dave should try to survive next. And that one over there already explains how to actually stop the bleed. Go now.